We are going to look at the Z-test statistic. The Z-test statistic is one of the parametric test statistic that we use in hypothesis testing. Okay, so I'll start off by looking at the assumptions of the test. The first assumption is that the population from which the sample is drawn approximates a normal distribution. Now, a normal distribution is that distribution in which characteristics of that group or that sample are representative of what would ordinarily be found in the population, any population. For example, if you're going to do a study on intelligence, it means that a normally distributed population will compose of people with high intelligence, with medium and our average intelligence, and low intelligence. If we're going to do a study with people who are just, for example, mentally retarded only, then that's not a normally distributed population. The second assumption is that the population mean is known. So in this case, we are saying the mean or the average from previous studies is given. For example, if you want to do a study probably on the average age at which people get married, you are going to use population data from the previous census, for instance. So the previous data mean or average there is what we call the population mean. So the population mean refers to the mean from previous studies, or that which is already known is you about to go into your own study. The population standard deviation is known. So in a set test statistics, the standard deviation will be given. So we're going to start off with an example. So the example that we have there is, you can take it down. The psychologist suspects that the number of suicide cases at local universities has changed over the past 5 years. She knows that 5 years ago, universities would record an average of 20 suicide cases a year with a standard deviation of 6. So with a sample of 25 universities and colleges, she finds that the number of suicide cases in the year 2022 is 23. What can she conclude? Tested alpha 0.05. So the first step there has to do with stating the hypothesis. And the null hypothesis is that there is no significant change in the average number of suicide cases across universities. And the alternate hypothesis would be that there is a significant change in the average number of suicide cases across universities. So the word significant there is very significant. So the step number 2 has to do with coming up with the decision criteria. And they were already told from one example that the alpha is 0.05, and these are two-tail tests. By two-tail tests, we're saying from the case that you're given, we are not told whether the number of suicide cases will increase or will decrease. And because of that, we divide the alpha by 2, and then we get 0.025. 0.025, we can express it as a percentage to mean 2.5%. So the alpha simply expresses what we call the confidence level, which is the 95% confidence level. What we are saying is that we are going to work with a 5% margin of error and a 95% confidence level. Okay, so we then look at our statistical table. I want to look for what 2.5% represents. So from that table, you will see that the Z equivalent of the lower limit right of 2.5% tail is 1.960. So it means that our Z crit, or our critical value for the Z, is plus or minus 1.96. So what it means is that if after our calculations, we get a value which is beyond plus 1.96, we reject the null hypothesis. If we also get a value which is beyond minus 1.96, we'll also reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so that is shown diagrammatically by that chart there. Okay. We go to step number 3, which is calculating the Z-test. So in calculating the Z-test, we have to know our formula, which is that sample mean minus population mean over standard error, or in simplified terms, sample mean minus population mean over standard deviation over square root of n. So we need to identify the variables. So first we need to identify the sample mean, which is represented by the X bar there, and the sample mean is 23. We also need to identify the population mean, which is represented there by the U, and is 20. The standard deviation is 6, and the sample size is 25. So we can then substitute the formula. So it means that Z is equals to 23 minus 20 over 6 over square root of 25. And Z is equals to 23 minus 20 over 6. Square root of 25 there is 5. And 23 minus 20, that's 3 over 6 minus 5, it gives us 1.2 there. And therefore Z is equals to 2.5. So this is the Z obtained, or the obtained value for the Z. After that, we go straight away to make a decision and state a conclusion. So since our Z obtained is 2.5 falls in the rejection region, the researcher will reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the average number of suicide cases has significantly changed. And that's the end of the test statistic calculation. What is important is to be able to identify the variables, what is the sample mean, what is the population mean, and all. Because if you get it wrong, that's where the problem may actually start. So as you read through your passage, be able to identify what the sample mean is, what the population mean is, what the standard deviation, and the sample size. Okay, so I'll just give a little explanation there. When you go back to the example, you see that the psychologists suspect that the number of suicide cases at local facilities, local universities, has changed over the past 5 years. She knows that 5 years ago, universities would record an average of 20 suicide cases a year. So already we are told that some time back, 5 years ago, the average number of suicide cases was 20. So that's our population mean, which is the average or the mean that existed before we started this research, like I explained earlier on. So that becomes the population mean. The population mean, the average that we know, or the mean that we know before we even start our research. And the standard deviation of 6, that one is clearly stated. So with a sample of 25 universities, so the sample of 25 universities, so this is in colleges, because this is the number of participants in this study, is 25. That is what it means. It's a sample of 25 universities. And then she finds that the number of suicide cases in the year 2022, which is the year that this research is going on this year, the number of suicide cases is the average number is what, 23. So this is what is current, this is what is coming from the current sample, and therefore it's the sample mean, okay? And of course the alpha we are told. I think that is critical, that it helps you to identify the variables. If you fail to do that, it may be difficult for you to get, actually impossible for you to get the correct answer. Okay, you can do as many practice as possible. I wish you all the best in understanding the Z tests.